welcome to episode number 207 of the LSR podcast. My name is Matt Brown, joined each and every week by the brightest minds in all the gaming industry with me. I have two of those in Adam Candee, Dustin Gouker. They're on the Twitter machine, X machine, Twitter machine. It's Twitter forever on this podcast. It is at Dustin Gouker. It is at Adam Candee, 2 E's, no Y. And if you hate yourself, you can follow me at Matt Brown M2. We'll talk a little bit about maybe a poor choice in promotion. We will also talk about something that happened in Monday Night Football that maybe they should have gone a little bit different. I should say Sunday Night Football, and maybe they should have had a different option for betting on that over at FanDuel. And we'll talk about a guy that we know, a prominent guy out in the industry who's kind of issued a challenge, if you will, that has been put out there. But Adam, let's kick things off with Florida.
Yeah, we have to start with what could become the biggest sports market in the country again, as it looks like the path is largely clear to Florida sports betting after sort of I guess we can call it not a last ditch, but maybe a second to last ditch appeal by Wes Flagler, who has been pushing against the compact that the Seminole tribe has with the state of Florida that allowed it to start its Hard Rock Bet app, then was subsequently shut down. Anyway, in the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals, they were denied a rehearing on a petition that did not go their way. The long and short of it is, if you're in Florida and you're waiting for Hard Rock to restart its app, it could, big asterisk on could, start within a week or so. Now, Wes Flagler has the option to take this to the Supreme Court. Our John Holden has written on it and said that he does expect that they would ask the Supreme Court to take up the case. However, as we probably remember from the PASPA days, it is rare for the Supreme Court to choose to actually take up a case that has been put in front of it. About 1% of the cases that are sent to the Supreme Court will actually be heard by the Supreme Court. Now, John thinks that this could get wrapped up with some other tribal issues, and that would give it a better chance to be heard at the Supreme Court. But as of right now, what we're talking about for Florida is the fact that Hard Rock could restart sometime soon. Important to keep in mind that this market continues to be a total monopoly. It is Hard Rock, or Hard Rock. You will not have other options in the state unless another sportsbook is willing to pay a significant revenue share to Hard Rock, which, as evidenced by their attempt to get a petition on the ballot a couple of years ago to open up the market, they are not particularly excited about.
So, Dustin, when we take a look at this, we are familiar with the team behind everything that's going on over there at Hard Rock Digital. And so I am not thinking we would get the same thing we got when there was a monopoly in DC, which we were getting horrible lines. We were getting absolutely absurd things where we even said on this podcast, hey, you should probably just keep your money offshore as opposed to betting into these markets because it's absolutely obscene. I don't imagine we will be getting the same, even though they would be technically the kind of only game in town. I use that, with air quotes because there is still bookies and offshores and stuff.
Yeah, I don't believe that Hard Rock's going to run this badly. Again, I live in a monopoly state with DraftKings in Oregon. It's a good product. It's a good product.
Mm-hmm.
It's like DraftKings everywhere else. I get retention bonuses. I get promos. I get all of that stuff. I don't get worse odds.
Mm-hmm.
DraftKings just making all the money in Oregon, which, not necessarily right, but that is what it is. I think Hard Rock running as a monopoly does the same, runs the same product it runs everywhere else, gives good odds, promotes it, tries to get players to come in and stay. And at the end of the day, that's fine. It's better than the status quo of nothing, right? That's better. Mm-hmm. And again, like Adam said, we have this, at least a chance of more of that. Again, remiss if I'd say you can play fantasy versus the house in Florida right now if you want to. You can. I'm saying if you're the Seminole tribe, maybe you'd want to take a look at this and see if this DFS daily fantasy sports product, is it all like sports betting? And maybe you'd want to stop that if you're going to have legal sports betting in the state. Just saying.
Maybe that's a long tease here to our last topic that we're going to talk about a little bit later on in the program here. So listen, 9/11 just happened. Obviously, we're recording this on the 13th, so a couple of days ago. Dustin, there was something at one of the sports books that was up momentarily, got taken down, and in retrospect, you kind of wonder who gave the seal of approval on all of that.
Yeah, momentarily. We'll get to that in a second. But DraftKings had a parlay, promoted parlay based on 9/11, having all the New York teams win that night, saying never forget on your little, again, I didn't see it on my DraftKings app, but a lot of people did. You could parlay the Mets, the Jets, and the Yankees all to win on 9/11 with never forget on it. I don't know, plus 600 some odds. Totally tone deaf. I mean, obviously, I don't know, these promoted parlays are not going terribly far up the food chain, but it's a crazy amount of lack of respect for the brand that you're even thinking about running this, because as soon as it gets out in the world, like, people are just dunking on this left and right. I saw it the night, was it, I mean, it came out during Sunday Night Football. I think people started seeing it, right? Like, and like, people are like, this has to be fake. Somebody photoshopped this. And but there's multiple versions of it going around. It's like, yes, this is real. This is actually up. And like, they tell you how many people bet on it. Something like 1,000 people bet on this before they actually pulled it down. So momentarily, I don't know, it was up for long enough time that hundreds of people were betting on this parlay. I don't know. The larger story is DraftKings and FanDuel. They have the lead right now, but I'm just wild to me that they do things that are not respectful of their own brands. Like, this is, like, again, I know this doesn't go up. I mean, it doesn't even, it's so far down the food chain that this decision probably got made, but like, why isn't it instilled in people down the org chart, saying, you got to think about the brand? Like, what are we gaining out of a parlay about 9/11? It's just such a bad look. And the fact that there's somebody in the company thing, man, great idea, let's do a parlay commemorating 9/11. Like, I don't know. And I'm also like, nobody should be selling anything around 9/11, really, right? Like, let alone a sports book. That's like, you don't need to mention 9/11. Or you can like put an American flag out and respect that. Do you need to sell something off of 9/11? No, please don't do that.
Yeah, Adam, it was. I agree with Dustin, the fact that, I mean, this was probably made by someone way down the line, like a lower level marketing person who thought that this was going to be a good marketing idea. Obviously, it was the exact opposite of a good marketing decision in all of this. But more than anything, it just comes down to, if there's any question whether you should hit submit on something, just about anything. And we've talked about this with Twitter accounts with these sports books and all these different things like that, like some of these tweets that they used to do. And all, like, if there's a question whether to hit submit or not, then the answer's probably already directly in front of you.
Yeah, that's wholly accurate, guys. And I have to take you a little bit behind the curtain, because when this was pointed out to me late on Sunday night, my initial inclination was not to give it any more volume at Legal Sports Report. My initial inclination was to say, this is in very poor taste, but I also do not like getting into outrage porn. Right? Like, the idea of amplifying outrage for outrage's sake. There's so much of that out there, and if you think I'm not respecting 9/11 and saying that, please understand that I'm from New York. I was in the World Trade Center towers as a child. Like, I understand everything that goes with it. I also think it's worth keeping in mind here that what happened likely involves, and I'm not going to absolve them for doing this because they don't get absolution for this, but we are now 22 years past 9/11, and we are at the point where you likely have people who are working in some of these marketing positions and working in these jobs who either weren't alive or were very small children when this went on, and don't have the same connection, just inherently, just the same thing that we're talking about, where immediately in our heads we go, oh, no, you do not build a parlay and put never forget on it. You just don't do that. I think that you probably have to also keep in mind that we are now getting to the point in time where people might need to be reminded as to exactly what it was.
Yeah, no, it's a very good point. I mean, I was with you. Like, I looked at it and I was kind of like, I mean, seriously, guys, but it wasn't like, everyone was screaming from a mountaintop that it was like the worst thing that ever happened in sports betting. And I guess I'm old enough to remember some of the things that these industries have done, like some of the things that have been done and have been said and whatever, where I'm kind of like, of all the things to be jumping up and down about, like, this is more of a, like, guys, what the hell are you doing? As opposed to like, oh my God, this is the worst thing that ever happened. Dustin, one of the things though, you and I did talk about a little bit, and you on your personal place where you get to go and rant did write about, there was a bet that was offered people thought over at FanDuel on Sunday Night Football, in which first touchdown. And that is a very common bet. And it is, if anyone plays fantasy football, when you draft a defense, you also are getting their special teams. It's like basically most places it is under the assumption that defense special teams is the position, right? Because there's not ever a separate special teams. There's always defense special teams. But that was actually not the case for the first touchdown bet.
Yeah, well, let's back up. Obviously, the game, Sunday night game, Cowboys Giants, first touchdown scored on a blocked field goal by the Cowboys. Yes, you would normally, and most regulated U.S. sports books, you would have gotten the defense special teams. FanDuel sometime in recent history changed their house rules to say defense does not include special teams. The problem being though that there is literally no way to win this bet at FanDuel. Like as soon as when the special teams scored the first touchdown, nobody won. FanDuel takes all of the bets, which again, they're very, I don't really have sympathy for people who are complaining because it's very clear that you don't get special teams, right? Debatable though. I mean, it's a defensive down maybe, but they're kicking a field goal. It's, most rational people can see that as special teams. The problem is that, again, whether your house rules stay it, regulators are fine with it. Why is FanDuel scooping all the bets and not giving you even a chance to win the bet? Again, I outlined even at the places we don't want to mention, the Bavadas and Bet Onlines, you can bet the field. Anybody else anybody else who ever takes the field and scores a touchdown, you can place that bet. The problem is that I just don't understand. Again, it goes back. It's almost the same as DraftKings to me. It's why are you damaging the brand for nothing? I understand some of the reasoning. You don't want to pay out both a player and the special teams potentially on a first touchdown bet. Sure, but find other ways around it. You can, you could say nobody won the bet. You can pay the next touchdown that scored. Any of these things. Instead, we have this bad look that I don't know how. I mean, obviously, I amplified it a little bit, but there's a lot of pissed off customers at FanDuel for a minuscule amount of money that you're not helping your brand by doing this. You're making, I don't know, 4 or 5 figures or saving money. Who cares? You're making bazillions of dollars a year. Just, find a way to pay people on the first touchdown bet, and be done with it. Instead of making me yell at you for it.
Adam, I think as people who bet regularly, we would say that a market in which there is an outcome in which you cannot win, that there is absolutely no way to win it, is probably a bad market.
I think there's only one real solution to this market. And you could say that as a Giants fan, I'm being slightly biased here. I think we have to call off the play and redo it. I don't think we can keep the play. If there was clearly no way to win the bet on it, then the play was not valid. We need to go back. We need to restart the game. We need to give the Giants another opportunity at this field goal to not be down 7-0 immediately. It's only fair.
I listen. Hey, I'll be with you on that one. We want to close things out here, Dustin. A person that we know follows, in the gaming space, in the gaming law space, very much so. Mark Edelman put out the Pepsi challenge, essentially, to one of the things that you are very passionate about here. Just kind of run people through what's going on.
Yeah, there's been a lot of chatter about daily fantasy sports, which you can call it whatever you want. 2.0 fantasy versus the house. Again, the market that is Prize Picks, Underdog, Better, and many others. They put out a quote unquote white paper saying how super legal they are everywhere. Sure, I like their legal arguments are fine. They're pretty good. But yeah, Mark, who's been in this space since I've been in it, talking about the legality of it. I mean, well before I am, in terms of looking at it as an academic and as a from a legal standpoint, it said, okay, I want to see your unreacted legal opinion. I'd love to see that too, because that's more than a white paper that kind of that shows us from the exact those white paper talking about came from Underdog Fantasy as their rationale for being in all of the states that they are in, which some are states with DFS laws, some are states that only have game of skill laws, and I don't know. We've been three of us I know have been talking about this privately too. I don't the part that it's hard to have a serious conversation about this, because just like the first version of DFS, we can't have a serious conversation about whether this is gambling. It either has to be black or white. There's this line between DFS and sports betting. Over here is sports betting, over here is DFS. That is not how it works. These things are, the Venn diagram of gambling and DFS It's both. It's fine. It's also fine that, yes, maybe you're super legal or very legal in a lot of places. Other places, there's some gray area about, or way more than a gray area, well, whether you're gambling or not. But we can't even have the conversation, because as soon as you have the conversation about, oh yes, we're actually gambling, but we're using DFS laws as our legal basis, then the house of cards fall apart. So we can't have an honest discussion about whether this is gambling or not. That's the problem. Like, I can buy that it's legal in a lot of places based on the laws that are written. What I don't buy is that it's not sports betting also, that you're not gambling, because again, pick'em contests versus the house are the same exact mechanic as parlays. There's no difference other than the legal basis you are using to run them. And again, where the whole argument falls down, let's say DraftKings, FanDuel, BetMGM, and Caesars all put out a press release tomorrow saying, you know what, we're going to run pick'em fantasy contests all across the country and all these states that these companies do. That's a great way to get it all shut down. Actually, they should do that because there's no way people are going to say, yep, cool, DraftKings and FanDuel, you're just going to have parlay bets on players everywhere in California and Florida and Texas and all these other states. Cool. Regulators aren't going to say that's cool. There would be a vicious reaction to that if that happened. That's where all this analysis falls flat for me, is that DraftKings and FanDuel and everybody else can't do this. Like, again, we think, in the bubble, Prize Picks, Underdog, these are big companies to us. They have not really, gotten through in the consciousness of the larger world. Regulators are still wrapping their heads around what this is. Although there was apparently a Prize Picks commercial on an NFL broadcast this week. I did not see it, but I've been told by one Matt Brown that there was. So anyway, I just want to have an honest conversation with people about it, that whether this is gambling or not, because not the legal basis, because I barely even care about the legal basis, because we're just throwing it over on the side saying, you know what, it's legal. Who cares whether it's gambling or not? It's just legal.
Yeah, it is. It's super interesting, Adam, whenever we want to have kind of discussion about all of this. I mean, there's a lot of kind of mental gymnastics that go on with everything to kind of get to why this would be legal. And as Dustin stated, I mean, look, letter of the law, all the different stuff like that, whatever. But now we're getting one response to the deal of like the analogy of pop a shot at Dave and Buster's, and there's all the like stuff that's going on. Like, it's like the mental gymnastics it takes to get to the place where you're like trying to explain why this is all on the up and up and makes total sense. It's like, it's kind of like we're all sitting back here going, I mean, do you really even believe that? I get it. You have to say the certain thing, whatever. Like, do you really even believe that? I'm more like in Dustin's camp now at this point, where I'm not even like, hey, look, if it's legal by the letter of the law, then so be it, and do what you got to do. And, if DraftKings and FanDuel and all them want to like lose their minds and try to get this shut down, then it is what it is. But like trying to do this whole word manipulation and all this Jedi mind trick stuff about why it is, legal and stuff. It's just like, I'd rather you just tell me, hey, look, we're doing it. It's legal by the law. Shut us down if it's not legal.
And multiple places have shut them down for being not legal, or at least told them that the product needs to significantly change. And the part that I will not allow Underdog or anyone else in this space to do is to reframe this argument as it's DraftKings and FanDuel against us. No. Even if it were DraftKings or FanDuel, I have no idea if it was, but if it were DraftKings or FanDuel who had gone to, say, the Wyoming regulators who sent you a cease and desist letter that said you need to shut down, trust me on this, no state-level regulator is taking direction from DraftKings and FanDuel. They are evaluating the product and looking at it independently and saying, you can't do this. And Michigan and New York aren't changing their rules to go and make clear that this type of game is not allowable because some operator told them that they don't like the fact that it's there. If you got narked out, I'm sorry. And if you got narked out by someone you're competing against, oh well. Like, that's just reality. And I'm not going to let them. And this is what they tried to do. Underdog tried to reframe this whole thing as, well, this is because DraftKings and FanDuel want to shut us down. And then we had another smart person out there with apparently some term called DFS Plus that I had never heard before, also trying to say that this is about it being anti-competitive. Well, let's talk about the very basic nature of competition. The idea of competition is competition on a level playing field. And so that's really what we're talking about here. The product itself is a sports betting product. It is a fantasy versus the house. It is a sports betting product that is being offered under DFS law. And we've heard it from multiple states. In fact, look at Colorado if you want an example again. Look at Colorado saying you can only do this if you have 4 outcomes and it's based on fantasy points and not on stats. And you agreed to it, but you're being disingenuous when you go out there and say, look, Colorado said it's okay. No, they didn't say that it's okay. So if we can have this discussion in some sort of rational terms, then I am happy to. But right now, we are all kind of down in the muck, trying to redo 2015 all over again. And I don't think that there's any need to. We can listen to what the regulators are saying about these products, report on that, and let that be where we keep the forum for discussion here. Because if Underdog, Prize Picks, etc., want to go against the regulators, if they want to keep offering the product, if they want this to end up in court, then fine, we'll get a decision in court. But right now, the fact of the matter is, it is disingenuous to say that regulators are okay with these games.
Again, I know I've said this on this podcast before, but I'm going to reiterate it. If DraftKings and FanDuel thought they could do this and not get any static for it, they'd have done it years ago. They would have done it before all of this. It's such a straw man to say, oh, DraftKings and FanDuel could just do this. They cannot. They've already run that calculus. Again, maybe it's just risk tolerance, but they know at this point that they lose enough gaming licenses, and that probably turns it to a domino effect, that there is no way that they could remotely offer the same product that all of these companies are. Again, I understand some of them are in the regulated betting space too, but on a state by state basis, like some of this is going to slip through, and I'm still not, I'm not a buyer that all of these companies are also going to be able to offer sports betting everywhere. Again, I think that's just a straw man. Like DraftKings and FanDuel have run this. Again, I'd say, everybody would do this if they just thought, oh, this is cool. Yeah, let's just do this. Again, because there's too much legal risk for actual gambling license to do this. So it is not a level playing field. No, by no means is it that. I don't know. And I haven't, if you say follow us on the Twitter machine, the things that are being called daily fantasy sports, the line just keeps getting moved. There's we talk about the main companies, Prize Picks and Underdog, better are the ones we talk about because they're the ones who are most out there taking a lot of bets or doing press releases or putting stuff out. Yeah. There are like, I don't know, 8 to 10 other companies doing the same thing that you never heard of. One of the ones that Adam and his team have reported on, called No House Advantage, that basically became insolvent or is still paying players out. I don't know. But here's what's going on in the market. Like there's a one called Parlay Play where you can go bet on Valorant. I don't even know if I'm saying that right. Do you guys know what that even is? It's an esport. And you can bet on 2 people and how many kills they have on maps. And that's fantasy sports. That's you're parlaying 2 performances in a esport that most people have probably never heard of. And that's being called, it's using the same legal justification that we've been heard. This is so legal, same legal justification, exact same. There's also, you can bet on the number of pitches 2 pitchers throw in a single inning in any game today, probably. I think like the first inning, over under how many pitches. Again, that's daily fantasy sports, not sports betting. who actually believes that's daily fantasy sports? Like that, like. There's never been a fantasy sport in the history of the world based on the number of pitches you throw. Again, you're reading the letter of UIGA and these DFS laws. Sure. It's statistics. Yeah. Great. It's just like, I don't think people realize the level of which this has gone. If it was, again, if it's stopped at fantasy, like over under fantasy points, great. I don't care. Do it to your heart's content. But we just keep pushing the line to now it's esports. It's now single inning outcomes. There's in-game fantasy at many, like in-game fantasy, again, like fantasy after the game has started. Like you can, place entries on whatever. That's what's happening in the market right now. And I still don't think people really realize that. And to the people who say, oh, regulators are walking this back. Do you know how little attention people have paid to DFS after the initial wave of it and the regulation and, DraftKings and FanDuel and the rest registering? No, these people, sometimes it's not even the gaming regulator dealing with this. Like correct me if I'm wrong, Adam, it's like the Department of Agriculture or some crap in Virginia is in charge of it. Like nobody's paying attention to this. And there's no, like, you can say, oh, they've looked at this. No, they have not looked at this in great measure. They started the base level product. and then they've added on because nobody's paying attention, and that's really where this comes down to.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and Adam, just to put a bow on this, and I don't want us to go too long here, and it seems like we rant about this every single week, but again, DraftKings and FanDuel catch a bunch of hell because they do same game parlays and advertise same game parlays and things like that and whatever. But you can bet just straight up bets there. You can whatever. Like, there is no option with this. Like, if parlays are so horrible and they're predatory towards bettors, and it's responsible gaming and all the different things that we preach and everything on here, like, that's the only way you can play this stuff. The only way it works is that you have to have multi-leg and you have to do parlays, you have to whatever. So there's a whole even aspect that we don't really hit on from that too, where their product just in general is like negative EV. It's like a thing that like you are entering into in which you are automatically behind the eight ball, but it's not peer to peer. You are against the house, so the house has the advantage, right? I mean, it's just the way it works.
Yeah, we can spend another 20 minutes talking about the parlays and whether it's a good idea or not. But in the end, we're just talking about there being a level competition and a level playing field in the end. And there's nothing wrong with certain companies offering certain products if they are doing it under the auspices of the same law that the other companies offering similar products are doing it.
Yeah, I'll think something. I want to highlight something Adam, I think, said privately as well. Like, do you think if DraftKings just started offering, like, in say Pennsylvania, like started like sports betting is taxed at a fairly high rate there? Do you think the Pennsylvania be cool? Like, oh, we're going to offer sports betting, but we're going to call it DFS, and we're going to pay less taxes. That's why, again, that's why this doesn't happen in Pennsylvania, because somebody figured this out already or looked at it and said, you can't do this. It's obviously gambling. You can't do it that way. So. Yeah, but that's again, it's such a. I can't get over how angering it is to me. Again, I feel like I should be representing DraftKings. I'm not. This is just how I feel. But like it is just insane. Like, DraftKings just can't do this. Like, you can knock on DraftKings for a lot of things. DraftKings cannot just go open up DFS against house and everybody's going to be cool with it. It's not possible.
No, not possible. Then the outrage would actually.
But that's why they should do this. DraftKings and FanDuel you don't have to do any product. Just say, we're going to start operating DFS versus the house parlay pick'em in 40 states and see what happens. That'd be great. I'm into that. Please do that.
Oh man, everything we do absolutely free. So please go over to LegalSportsReport.com, take in all the great words that Adam and company are doing, and I'm going to re-listen to this podcast as well. I think we said some great stuff on this. So this we got all fiery about these things. We ranted for a little bit longer than maybe we should have. At Adam Candee, 2 E's, no Y. At Dustin Gouker over there on the Twitter machine as well. For Adam, for Dustin, I'm Matt. Talk to you guys next week.